Luke has had a question for a long time about why characters in comics and novels always take the hard way instead of the easy way. If there is something one really wanted to accomplish, they should do whatever it takes to get there. A guy who seems to be running away from someone tumbles forward and falls. He wonders what the hell just happened. He comes face to face with Luke. The guy furiously calls Luke a crazy bastard and asks him why he's doing this to him again. Soon, he is on his knees. As he struggles to breathe, he sees Luke standing right in front of him. He once again asks him why. To this, Luke grabs his arm that is holding the sword and makes him stab himself. And then he answers him by saying that killing others and taking what they have is easier and more convenient. He asks him again if that's not correct. The guy gets up and tells him that if he's so good he should be taking on high-level players. He also asks him why he's messing with a newbie like him. Luke grabs his chin and before the guy knows it, his neck is sliced by Luke, killing him. Luke says he already answered him by saying this is convenient and easier. Luke is in a virtual reality game called Argos. It is an RPG game, set in a fantasy-inspired world. Its unprecedented freedom and vast world quickly captured the attention of gamers around the world. It is the #1 game in the world with tens of millions of concurrent players. It became the best game in the world. Suddenly, floating windows pop up and Luke wonders what it is. It states that his notoriety is sky high and he has received an achievement for being the worst criminal ever. Luke wonders what he did to make himself the worst criminal ever. He's sure that he hasn't even killed that many people. He thinks how, at best, he must have killed around 100,000 people. He then ponders if it could be more as he has killed a lot of people in the past 2 years. He then takes a look at his achievements. It says that he can deal 100% extra human damage and that he has killed more people than anyone else and has now become the worst criminal known throughout the continent. From now on, all nations would be wary of him and humans would tremble upon just hearing his name. He's happy to see that he can deal twice the damage to humans. For now, Luke is glad that there are no witnesses and even the guy he just killed, who was in combat, couldn't have taken a screenshot. He decides to erase all traces of evidence and leave this place. So, he activates sense detection skill and detects a human presence within a radius of 50 meters. To Luke, this seems unlikely to be a coincidence, so he wonders if it is another bounty hunter. He decides to hide behind a tree, which is when he sees a man walking his way. He sees that his name is Kuhue. Luke notices that his armor is cloth type and he has with him a shabby long sword and his overall equipment seems to be in shambles. It just feels cheap to Luke. He then turns around and walks away thinking that there are more people to kill. So he decides to go look for his next prey when Kuhue says he found him. Luke can't believe that his cover was blown. He takes his stance with his sword but it is immediately sliced in half by Kuhue. Luke was also struck by Kuhue's sword. He falls to the floor thinking there's no way this happened. While his eyes close, he looks up at Kuhue, thinking how he got hurt while dealing with such a small fry. The game then notifies him that he's died. And due to Luke's high notoriety level, no penalties would be applied to the opposing player. He is also informed that he will not be allowed to log in for 24 hours due to the death penalty. And as a penalty, he would be imprisoned in the Grand Sentinel prison. Syaku feels frustrated about this as he sits in front of the game, in his pod. Murderers who accumulate notoriety are subjected to various penalties. When they die, they would lose a level by default and drop any items they were carrying. Just thinking about what just happened within the game is making Syaku mad. He thinks that since he is the worst criminal ever, the penalty would be huge. He tells himself that he would find a way to get back online later. And when he does do so, he finds himself behind bars at the Great Sentinel prison, which is on top of a 100-meter high summit. He is told by the game that he is a heinous criminal who has no right to be tried or defended. So the Empire has sentenced him to life imprisonment. Luke takes a look at this, takes a moment to pause and then cracks up laughing. He then says that they should at least let him have a trial. A life sentence all of a sudden seems too much. That's when he notices his clothes and lack of equipment. He then checks out his inventory and that too seems to be empty. He is told that all of his belongings are confiscated. All his abilities have been sealed and all levels have been sealed off. Luke shouts and screams and says that there are things that should be touched and things that shouldn't be touched. The guard irritatedly asks why that dog is barking. Luke gives up shouting and thinks that there must be a bug in this game. Besides him, he spots a bone. He immediately flings it away. It falls on a hooded figure in the corner. Upon a closer look, it's a skeleton, and in its mouth is a piece of paper. He takes it out and gets a notification saying that he has found the traces of Yowing for the first time and he has obtained the wool left by Yowing for the first time. Luke then reads the contents of the note. It says that Yowing used to be deeper and darker than anyone else. Back when he was the Lord of the Shadows and ruled the Dark Valley as the king of all bandits, they, who are called as heroes of the 10 realms and the continent, regarded him as a thorn in their side. They must have been jealous of the treasures he possessed, so they accused him of being evil and grasped the entire continent. so Luke understands that he was bullied and robbed by those so-called heroes of the 10 realms. As he continues to read, the note states that he would repay them in the same way. After reading this line, Luke throws it away, saying that Yaoang's will is a load of bullshit. Suddenly, the paper appears to glow. Someday, Yaoang's successor would appear and trample over their world, and that existence would destroy them all. This successor would take everything they have without leaving a single thing behind. The note is still floating mid-air, leaving Luke confused. Then, the game tells him that Yaoang, the ruler of the Dark Valley, was unjustly imprisoned and died. He is eager to see a descendant who will relieve his resentment. He sealed away his remaining power in his will so Luke might be qualified for that. He is then asked if he would carry on the will of Yaoang. Luke thinks this must be some hidden quest and gladly accepts it. But before he can tap on yes, he realizes that he won't be able to get out of here even if it was a hidden quest because it's a life sentence. It's a shame that he can't take the quest even though he wants to. In the real world, Xiaoku tries to look up Yaoang and nothing shows up, so he realizes this is an actual hidden quest. It's the first time he's come across a hidden quest, so he's upset that he had to receive a quest at a time like this. Luke considers giving up on the game when he is informed that all levels, stats, and skills will be reset if he accepts. If it's a situation where the character goes to level 1 due to a reset, then the option to choose a hidden quest would appear. So Luke thinks that would be the way. A little while later, Luke's character is initialized back in the game but as a rookie. He cheers in joy that he succeeded. From level 99 he goes all the way back to level 1. If a character in Argos goes back to level 1, one of two options can be chosen. The first option is to continue from the spot. The other option is to move to the starting village. He chooses to move to the starting village. It's a bit of a waste to reset, but it is better than starting with a completely new character. Just then, he sees two guards walking towards him. He freaks out, thinking that they already figured out that he escaped. But they soon walk right past him without doing anything. Taken aback, Luke thinks this might be a bug or something. Usually, they would have tried to kill him because of his infamous reputation. He opens his status window and is surprised to see his notoriety level down to 0. He also notices that it is going to hide his evil deeds, but the penalties still apply. He then checks out the skill window. His passive skill is false identity. It helps him conceal his evil deeds, but penalties still apply. His active skill is search. He can examine things to steal from a specific target as long as the target is close and not watching him. If he comes within sight or moves away from the target, the search would naturally stop. Another active skill of his is steal. He can steal items by searching, but however, each time he fails to steal, the probability of stealing reduces. And if the probability gets to 0%, opponents may notice his action or it may be considered an attack. So Luke realizes this character is not an ordinary thief and decides to test out the skills. He activates search and goes through the crowd of people around him. The game tells him to specify a search target. He spots a guy and thinks to target him. He walks by him and searches him to see that his belongings consist of rabbit skin, bandage, and glass beads. Luke is thrilled that he can get a glimpse of his inventory. But soon, the guy walks away and the search is stopped as he's too far away. He tells himself to not be sad as there would be other targets anyway. He thinks of how as the number of observers increases, the probability decreases. Later, he sees a man sleeping by the roadside. Luke hopes to steal from him without him knowing at all, so he begins to search him. The man is an NPC named Villager Willem. He seems to have a rusty dagger with him, which Luke immediately decides to steal from him. When the stealing is complete, Luke has the dagger in his hand, and because of this successful completion of stealing, his experience points and notoriety level increase. He thinks how if things kept progressing this way, he can climb levels easier and faster than before. He walks away deciding to only target those who look stupid from now. As he roams around thinking who he should rob next, he overhears two people having a conversation. One guy mentions that he has a high-level item. Luke thinks he just got lucky. In the game of Argos, there exists a system of item grades, starting from the most common normal grade, followed by rare, unique, heroic, and even the legendary artifact grade item, of which only one has been revealed. Even if an advanced item is only one grade higher than a normal item, sometimes it may have superior options that can be used until higher levels. That means if the options are good, the item can be sold for a high price. Because this guy has a high-level item in a beginner village, Luke chooses him as his next target. He walks closer to them and eavesdrops on them talking about whether he should sell the item or not. The guy says he needs to first go and check the price it'll go for and then think about it. So they go up to a place where they can check how much the item is worth and stand in the long queue to wait for their turn. Luke thinks this is his chance and begins to search him. At first glance, all he seems to have are junk and useless items. But then he sees a green option. The game says that it is an unidentified item. Luke also sees that it cannot be sold unless its identity is confirmed. Luke knows he can't give up at this point and decides to try. So he starts the identification procedure, but by now, it's the guy's turn for appraisal. Just as he's about to hand his item over to the person behind the desk, it goes missing as Luke has stolen it. The guy looks through his bag again but isn't able to find it. Luke pushes him away and tells him to not make people wait and move aside. The guy doesn't do anything, so Luke yells at him and asks him if he's deaf. He then hands over the dagger he had stolen earlier to sell. The two guys discuss that it might have gone missing because of a bug, and the other guy says he would send out an inquiry. When he's all by himself, Luke decides to check out the item he just stole. He is beyond thrilled to get an item that he couldn't even obtain after killing people. It is called the Bracelet of the Wind. It is the ultimate item with an illusory increase all speeds option. It would increase all types of speed besides agility and attack speed. There are no restrictions on who can wear it, so it's an incredibly expensive item. Luke thinks that maybe it's his destiny to become an incredible swordsman. Xiaoku then comes across a news video where the news anchor is talking about a rumor that's been going around the rankers lately. They say there's a new player out there who only hunts rankers. Xiaoku thinks that it might be some kid just copying him because Luke, who is known as the world's worst criminal, was like that too. The news reporters then display a picture of the ranker hunter. Xiaoku is stunned to see that it's the same guy who killed him. At the Argo's 10th Guildmaster meeting, a discussion about Gyuhui is going on. One of them asks where Gyuhui came from. Another replies that he's trying to figure it out, but he isn't getting any information. They decide that they need to deal with him as soon as possible and try to think of ways to catch him. One of them tells the rest that Gyuhui is similar to Luke. Another person gets angry at him for even bringing up Luke's name. They say that compared to Luke, Gyuhui is an angel. The head of the Goblin Guild, Rishner, suggests that they should try to stop Gyuhui's evil deeds first. After watching the news, Xiaoku thinks that there's no wonder he felt something off back then about Gyuhui, as he dared to hunt Luke while wearing cheap equipment. Luke thinks that it would take a while for him to start over from scratch, but one day, he would surely loot all of Gyuhui's items. Upon checking his status window, Luke is happy to see that he has reached level 4 in just 2 days. At this rate, he could easily achieve level 10 in just a week. Suddenly, a burly man calls out to him and asks him to spare a moment. The guy beside him asks Luke why he won't reply when his senior is talking to him. Luke wonders who these low-lifes are. The guy then tells Luke to not be scared of them as they are kind people. He continues to say that he's in a tough spot, so he asks Luke if he would team up with him and work together. Luke walks away after saying that it's too bothersome. Luke then receives an unexpected quest. It is a quest to clean up the town's bullies. His task is to eliminate the bullies and receive rewards from the village chief after the quest has been completed. So, Luke asks the bully why his tongue is so long and asks him to slide it back in. This makes him angry and he charges at Luke to attack. Luke swiftly dodges every single one of the bully's attacks, causing him to take a tumble and fall flat on his face. He also drops his dagger in the midst of this. He looks towards Luke and calls him a bastard. Luke immediately places his foot on his head and shoves it to the ground. Meanwhile, his companion, the other bully, swears at Luke and asks him to get his foot off him. Luke doesn't listen and proceeds to press his foot harder against his head. He picks up the fallen dagger and admires it, thinking how it's been a while. He raises it above the bully and says that it's time to return to being Luke, the worst criminal ever. Stabbing his neck, he tells himself there's no need to hesitate and no need to be merciful. When he's done killing him, he moves to the other bully while he pleads with Luke to not come near him. When he has successfully completed the quest, he goes to the house of Hamilton, the village chief of the beginner village. When he reaches the gates, he is stopped by 2 guards. He lets them know that he just took care of the town's thugs. They ask him if it is true, and Luke says that they could go back and check the alley if they didn't believe him. So they decide to give him the benefit of the doubt and tell him to go inside and give a full report to the chief. He soon meets up with Hamilton, the chief of the beginner village. Hamilton asks him what brings him here. Luke notes that contrary to rumors, he is just an ordinary old man. Hamilton's house is inaccessible without a specific reason, so the enigmatic NPC has not been seen by most players before. Luke says he's here to give him a full report after dealing with 2 troublemakers in the village. Hamilton says it is very nice of him to come all the way to see him in person. He invites him to have a seat and says he'll brew some tea. Luke tries to tell him he just wants the reward, but Hamilton grabs his wrists and insists that he should sometimes let the older ones have their way. Luke can't help thinking how strong this old man's grip is. As Hamilton pours the tea, Luke mentions again that he's here for the reward. But Hamilton doesn't listen and continues to say that the tea would taste great if he brewed it with precious tea leaves. Luke then drinks the tea, which tastes really good. Soon, Hamilton places a chest of rewards in front of Luke and asks him to take a look at the rewards. Luke is immediately overjoyed and tells Hamilton that he is very generous for offering such incredible rewards. Hamilton asks him to stop right there and says that there is only one reward. Luke can't believe it. Feeling enraged, he calls Hamilton a stupid. He then takes a look at the rewards. They are not searchable items, so they can't even be stolen. So he asks Hamilton if he could take out the items that are below as well to examine them. Hamilton asks him to go ahead, and Luke finds an item that seems to have a different effect. He takes a closer look at it, and he is informed by the game that he has discovered the possession of the Shadow King. Luke is surprised that there's an item like this here. Soon, the game recalls the memories stored within the object. Luke suddenly has visions of the Shadow King holding the compass in his hand. He had collected all kinds of objects, but this was his first time coming across something like this. This compass would become an existence that fulfills one's endless desires. The compass would point to what its owner desires most. He grins happily that it's going to be a part of his collection now. Soon, he is brought back to reality by Hamilton speaking to him. Luke is still in confusion over what happened. The game informs him that he may have inherited the Shadow King's powers, but he is weak. But he could regain his strength by collecting those treasures. Luke thinks how he hasn't gained any skills or exclusive traits even after leveling up, so unlocking them by collecting items would be the only way to do it. The game also says that from now on, he would be able to see the Shadow King's emblem engraved on items, and some items would reveal the memories stored within them. Luke takes another look at the compass. Hamilton says it is strange that he has chosen a broken compass as reward. But before Luke can react, he is informed that the rewards selection has been completed and he can no longer select rewards. In exasperation, Luke calls the Shadow King a stupid for leaving him with a broken compass. Luke tries to convince Hamilton to let him pick again. He says that he lost his mind for a moment and chose the wrong item. Hamilton proceeds to think for a moment and then blatantly refuses. He says it's his job to refuse his request to changing rewards after having selected one already. So Luke in defeat says that he would just drink the tea and leave as it was delicious. Hamilton thanks him for the compliment. Luke does not want to settle for a broken compass, so he tries to search Hamilton. Once he has been targeted, the searching continues and it is revealed that he has a vault key with him. It doesn't seem to be for this chest, but Luke still decides to go after it anyway. Syaku then receives a call from his little sister, Mira. He tells her he's busy right now and asks her to call him back later. She asks him if this is how he is going to be, especially after she has called him after a long time. So he says that he was just joking and asks her what the matter is. She asks him if he's coming to see her as she and their mom miss him. He says he would think about it. Mira says he has to come and hangs up. Syaku thinks how things are already complicated enough and now he has to go see his family. It's giving him a headache, and it's all because of that village chief, Hamilton. Stealing the key would be easy, but the issue was the safe. And the fact that the chief never leaves the house doesn't help either. Watching him feeling frustrated, a girl hands Syaku a drink. She asks if there's something bothering him. He says there's no use telling her about it as she wouldn't understand anyway, making her frown. So he tells her that there is someone who should leave but is refusing to go out. So she asks what Syaku is going to do if the person leaves. Syaku says he cannot tell her that. So she says that he should make this person leave by creating a situation where he has no choice but to leave, like setting up a trap. Syaku wonders why he didn't think of this before and asks the girl to give him her pot. He says he's found the answer to the riddle and that he would repay her later. She tells him to let her know what happened in Argos later, and he agrees. Because Luke had gained the favor of the village chief, he was allowed to freely visit the chief anytime. He thinks that if Hamilton could give him access like that, he should be prepared to be robbed. A few hours later, at Hamilton's house, Luke shows up at the gates and the guards let him inside without saying anything. He goes up to Hamilton and asks if he could make him some tea as he's feeling dizzy. He also says he can't forget the taste of the tea that he made for him before. Hamilton feels flattered and goes to make it for him immediately. Luke tells him there's no need to rush. He also asks him to make it slowly. Within moments, the theft is successful and Luke obtains the vault key. He thanks Hamilton for the tea while he thinks of where the safe could be. He's looked all over the first floor and hasn't been to find anything here. The only place he has not checked out yet is the second floor. He compliments the chief again by saying that the tea warmed his heart. The game informs him that his favorability rating has increased. Luke wonders why the person isn't here yet. Just then, there's a knock at the door. Hamilton asks Luke to wait and goes to open the door. Standing at the door is Houghton, a blacksmith. He tells Hamilton that there seems to be an issue with the drain. He says they should both go check it out together. The chief asks what's the problem this time, and Houghton replies that the drain is clogged with mud. Hamilton notices Luke's shoes, which are also muddy. He looks at him suspiciously but says nothing about it. He asks Luke to wait for Gim and Luke asks him to take his time. Luke gets up thinking it was worth the effort to clog the drain with mud. It would take them 10 minutes to get to the drain from the house, so he would have to be quick. He takes the stairs while thinking it's time to go treasure hunting. Luke looks around, trying to figure out where the old man could have hidden the safe. He doesn't have much time, so he would have to find it quickly. He spots something on the ceiling that seems strange and decides to check it out before Hamilton returns. So he goes to grab a stick nearby when he suddenly hears footsteps and voices. It is the guards who are looking for him. They call out his name and Luke wonders why they are here now. He hears them talking about how they do not understand why Hamilton asked them to wait inside the house. They continue looking for him and walk upstairs. Luke freaks out and searches for a place to hide. They walk into the room Luke is in as he scrambles to hide. They go up to the closet to open it while Luke trembles in fear of being caught. He hopes that they do not come to him. They open the closet and it is empty. Feeling relieved, Luke comes out of his hiding place, under a cloth, over a piece of furniture. He is glad he did not get caught or he would have to kill the guards. The end is in sight for Luke, so he tells himself he must endure and hold on. Using the stick, he pokes the piece of wood on the ceiling. It opens up to reveal a wooden ladder. Luke thinks it was a good attempt to hide a ladder like this in a mansion, but it wasn't enough to fool him. He climbs into the attic of the mansion and sees a gleaming chest. It is the chief's hidden vault. He grabs the key he had stolen and thinks this is how you resolve regrets over lost rewards. On opening the vault, there is an ancient hunter's fedora, ancient hunter's shirt, ancient hunter's pants, ancient hunter's boots, and an unidentified map. They all seem to be high-rank items, so Luke takes them, but the map seems strange to him. When he picks up the map, the game notifies him that he has obtained information related to a hidden scenario. So Siaku realizes that is what the map is for. 1 year ago in Argos, the first main scenario was released. It was a quest about the history of the continent, and it got everyone's attention. There was a huge influx of users. The front runners were the rankers and the top 10 guilds. Most users expected that they could monopolize the quests, but that expectation was shattered soon enough. Even the rankers could not get past the first few levels. It was of hellish difficulty. The progression was divided into dozens of routes, and there are dozens of prerequisite conditions required to break through blocked routes. Users did everything they could to conquer the main scenario. They poured all their time, money, and effort into it, and finally, they figured out the answer, which was the hidden scenario. They would have to achieve the hidden scenario to proceed with the main scenario. When the prerequisite conditions were revealed, the rankers tried to monopolize everything related to the hidden quest, and their competition continues to this day. 1 year later, Siaku assumes that the map would be the starting item for the hidden scenario. He wonders if it is possible to quickly advance while progressing through the hidden scenario. But Siaku is worried that it might become unnecessarily troublesome. The area on the map is in the south. It's a distance that can be reached within a few days by means of transportation. Siaku thinks he could always transfer the quest to someone else if things get too difficult, and on the way, he would have to clear the Forest of Trials quest. He decides to give it a shot. In the hidden quest scenario, a girl named Rabbit goes up to a carriage driver named Halls. He asks her if she's ready to move to the main continent. She says she reached level 10, so she would like to try it. The man says it is impossible to do it with half-hearted determination. He asks her if she really has confidence in herself. She sheepishly says that she does, so Halls tells her to ride behind him. He also tells her he looks forward to seeing if she can safely pass through the Forest of Trials under his escort. The game says that the wagon is about to depart. Rabbit gets onto the wagon and tells herself to get it together. She wants to first try to get to know her party members. She thinks of how she can't stay timid forever. She's a warrior with a big heart. However, it was not easy at all to reach level 10, but she thinks that she should only think happy thoughts. Just then, Luke shows up and says he is ready to board. Halls goes on to explain to him about the path they would be taking, but Luke cuts him off and says he does not want the explanation. He sits across from Rabbit and waves to her. She greets him back. Luke has flashbacks to the chest of rewards Hamilton had offered him. Not picking a good reward is bothering him, but he tells himself that it's done and he shouldn't regret it now. At least he had the Ancient Hunter items now. The Ancient Hunter set would increase the user's agility and increase the user's critical hit rate. Luke thinks that with this level, he should just be able to pass through the Forest of Trials. They are soon about to reach the Forest of Trials. It is the only way to advance to the main continent. As the name suggests, it is a place where fierce monsters lurk. The only way to pass through the forest is by riding the carriage that Halls gathers. Users must protect Halls and the carriage from the attacking monsters. There's a terrifying monster wave that occurs 5 times with a difficulty level that is overwhelming for users at level 10. If the escort fails and the party is wiped out, they must start over from the beginning. Luke takes out the bracelet he had stolen earlier and puts it on. The difficulty level of this quest is insane, so he knows his party members wouldn't be of much help. He thinks to go this with the mindset that he would have to carry them. After he puts on the bracelet, his speed stats are increased and the item is bound. Luke thinks the bracelet looks great. Soon, a man named Gulliver joins the party too. He seems to be a mage. At first glance, it seems like Rabbit's and Gulliver's jobs have been switched. Luke just hopes they do not get in the way. Soon, Luke finds it boring and looks for something to do, so he tries searching Rabbit. Her inventory consists of acorns, glass beads, and a green option called Electro. Luke is stunned to see that she has Electro, which is a unique level dagger. He celebrates, thinking that his luck is amazing. But he also notices that the odds are also too low. Because it is 2%, it means that if he fails even once, he would get caught. So he reads his skill window again. It says that if he gets caught, it would be considered a hostile act and he would be labeled as a criminal and end up in a fight. So Luke thinks that he should increase the probability first. He decides to naturally blend in with the party and lead the atmosphere. So he tells them that since they would be working together, they should get to know each other. He introduces himself as Luke. Gulliver and Rabbit also introduce themselves. Luke tells them that he did some research by watching videos. He informs them that teamwork among party members is the most important thing. He explains how things would work in detail. There would be 5 monster waves. The party would have to move around and stop the monsters that attack them and move again. The wild wolves would be the first to attack. The number of monsters would be quite substantial, but fortunately, they would not all rush at once. So he says Rabbit and himself would take turns guarding the front, and Gulliver would cover the back. Gulliver says that normally, warriors tank while melee players play the role of damage dealers in the middle. Luke says that is usually the case, but they would have to protect the carriage. So making sure the people in the front do not get breached would be the priority. Meanwhile, it would be unnecessary for the melee dealers to take turns guarding the front. Luke then says he doesn't know much about this, so if they didn't like it or felt uncomfortable about it, they should let him know. Gulliver says he would not have known any of this if it weren't for Luke. Rabbit also says that she's grateful that he took the time out to explain to them. Luke thanks them for the kind words while thinking how easy it was to trick them. When the wild wolves finally appear, the horse neighs in fright. Halls tells the party that they won't be able to get to the main continent unless they break through here. He also asks them to protect the carriage. So Luke jumps out, ready to take on the wolves. As Luke faces the level 9 wolves, Gulliver and Rabbit also approach. He tells them to endure as much as possible and then pass the baton and tells Rabbit to wait. She says to Luke that it is better for her to go first. He says that he has the highest stamina among them, so if he went first, it would be less of a burden on them. He asks Gulliver to watch their backs and provide support from behind and faces the wolf. The wolf rushes to charge at him and Luke moves in the nick of time. He then sees an opening and attacks the wolf from behind with his dagger. After the wolf is dead, he calls out to the other wolves, asking why they won't attack him. Luke then calls out to Rabbit as it is her turn. She says she got it and dodges the wolf by using her shield to block its attack. And then she whacks the wolf with it, sending the wolf flying. That's when Luke throws his knife at the wolf, killing it. Next up is Gulliver's turn. He casts mana balls on the wolves, and when they're distracted by it, Luke stabs them. When all the wolves have been killed, Luke compliments his party members. He thanks Rabbit for protecting them and thanks Gulliver for his hard work. They compliment him back by saying that the finishing move that he did to take down the wolf was impressive. Luke thinks that they are good party members after all and that he was worried over nothing. They decide to head back to the carriage, and that's when Luke notices Rabbit staring at him. He asks her if he can help her, so she asks him if he has any weapons by any chance, and then says never mind and walks away. So Luke wonders if she figured out that he was trying to steal. Meanwhile, Rabbit thinks that it's too early now as he might feel pressured, but she would see to it later. Luke wonders when and how she realized that and why she is keeping silent. Gulliver tells them that not having a priest is an issue and that there won't be any bandages left. Rabbit says she has only 1 bandage left, and Gulliver replies that he does not have much left either. Luke has about 258 bandages left. Bandages could be used to heal wounds. Luke then recalls that Rabbit had said she has only 1 left, so if she used it up, that would be his chance to steal. Then they face the third wave of monsters. It's a group of level 10 angry monkeys. A monkey keeps lashing out at Rabbit, but she isn't able to fend them off. She tells Luke that she thinks she's going to die. He tells her to hang in there while thinking that she has to use up that last bandage. Gulliver uses magic to cast mana balls once again while Rabbit is busy blocking the monkey's attacks. Gulliver asks Luke how much more time he needs. Luke says he needs a bit more time, while wrapping a bandage around his wrists. Rabbit asks him to help, but Luke does nothing. Gulliver yells at him to go help Rabbit as she's about to be killed. Luke calmly continues to wrap the bandage and says he's almost done. Halls watches this and thinks the party is about to be wiped out. He says this is it and they can do nothing about it now. He asks the adventurers to abandon the carriage and try to make it out of here alive. Luke asks him to wait a bit as it is not over yet. Gulliver shouts at him and says that if they abandon the carriage, they would have to do the quest again, while Rabbit just wants to hold on and make it out alive. A while later, she leans on the carriage completely exhausted. The game notifies that the wave has been successfully completed, and once all the party members get on the carriage, it would depart again. What had happened earlier was, Luke made Rabbit struggle for a bit and then asked her to change turns with him, which she gladly accepted. Luke knows he made Rabbit struggle for a while on purpose, but if he wanted to steal from her, he had to be reckless like that. Gulliver then says that Rabbit is out of bandages. She sinks to the ground and apologizes that it had to be because of her. Luke says that there's still 3 waves left and this would be an issue. In his mind, he cheers as things are going according to plan. He then tells her that he would share some of his bandages with her. She asks if he would really do that, and Luke replies that they have to help each other out. He then asks her for a simple favor in return, and she asks him what he wants. Luke's favor was to let him help her wrap the bandages. Rabbit tells him she is a little embarrassed because he is wrapping the bandage around her. The game system tells him that his proficiency is increasing. He tells her that it's just a bandage, and she mentions the distance between them. She then asks him if this is the only request he has and says that she would pay him for the bandage later. Luke tells her that it is okay as he just wanted to improve his proficiency in wrapping bandages. She thanks him and says he is too kind while he searches her. He sees that the probability of the electro dagger has gone up to 25%. He is glad that it went up so much. It would just need to raise it a little higher now. She looks at him admiringly, wondering how he could be so kind. She thinks of giving him something as a return gift, but then thinks that he might think it's weird and decides against it. The next wave brings level 11 poisonous snakes. She gets bitten in the wrist and thigh by a snake. She asks the party members to change turns as she keeps getting bites on her, while Luke watches thinking this is what he planned. He goes to her rescue again, and soon the 4th wave has been successfully completed. She falls to the ground again, and Gulliver heads to the carriage to let them both heal. So Luke goes to bandage her up again in hopes that the probability gets higher this time. He then searches her and sees that the electro dagger is at 50%. As he continues to bandage her, he tries to steal the dagger, but the stealing fails and the chance of succeeding decreases to 45%. The game continues to warn him that the theft has failed. Soon, the probability of the electro dagger is at 10%. Luke is done bandaging Rabbit up and she thanks him and says that's enough. But Luke grabs her hand again and says that they should replenish her health as it's the last wave. She hesitates, but Luke says that he is worried about it and it's something that's been on his mind, so Rabbit agrees to it. As Luke continues wrapping her arm, he notices the probability is still at 10% and he immediately steals it. During the 5th wave, the group faces level 12 wild boars. One of them charges at Luke, who evades its attack skillfully. Because of this, his evasion skill has reached a certain level and he acquires innate evasion skills. He then jumps onto the wild boar and sits on its back to stab it. After a while, Luke has defeated 3 of the wild boars. Because it's the last wave, it took him this long to deal with just a couple of wild boars. He then notices that Rabbit is having a hard time to fight the boar off, and even Gulliver is being chased by another wild boar. He asks Rabbit to switch turns. She says okay to Luke. But in the meantime, a wild boar races towards her, catching her off guard. She holds up her shield in order to protect herself, but Luke shows up by her side immediately and stabs the wild boar on its side. She worriedly asks him if he's okay, and Luke's reply is that Rabbit would help her too if he was ever in danger. She gets emotional upon hearing this, and then with a determined look on her face, says that she would do her best for him. Luke is happy he prevented them from giving up because of the difficulty of the Forest of Trials. There's now 2 wild boars remaining, and Luke goes ahead to take them head on. The party successfully make it out of the 5th wave and overcome the Forest of Trial, which is the first step in reaching the main continent. Soon, they are about to reach their destination. Rabbit is excited that she can see the exit. Meanwhile, Luke is relieved that it's over because it was difficult carrying both Gulliver and Rabbit. Gulliver tells Luke that they passed because of Luke's amazing skills. Rabbit and Gulliver talk about how they would be able to rank in no time if they were as good as Luke. Then, Gulliver says that this Luke is totally different from the psycho Luke they see on television. He says he heard that Luke has killed over 100,000 users. Suddenly, Gulliver points to Luke and asks him if he's the same crazy psycho Luke. Then they both laugh and say that there's no way he could be that Luke. Before they reach their destination, Halls tells them they are the best adventurers that he has ever seen. Luke tells Gulliver and Rabbit that he would see them again. In his mind, he wishes to never see them again as it was difficult to be together with them. Soon, the carriage reaches the outskirts of Patron Town. Each party member was dropped off one at a time at different locations. Luke is glad he finally reached this place. He walks through the busy streets that seems to be lined with shops and stores. He decides to check out the electro dagger that he stole from Rabbit. It is a unique grade dagger imbued with the power of lightning strikes. The force of thunder contained within it can sometimes stun opponents. And because he has successfully completed a theft, his proficiency, experience, and notoriety level have increased. Before he arrives at the place that appeared in the hidden quest, Luke decides to try to level up and equip himself as much as possible. It would be even better if he could find some Shadow King items while he's at it. While he is browsing through the shops, one merchant named Daso stops Luke. Luke asks what it is and Daso says that he has an excellent item. He then asks Luke to take a look at all the items in his shop. With one glance, Luke knows that it is all just trash. Luke gets angry thinking that all these merchants do is try and scam newbies. In Argos, there are non-combat professions where one can't find any ability that's related to combat. Among them, merchants are the most famous. The method of conversion is very simple too. However, due to the high profit gains, most people try to convert to the merchant profession. The more items one sells, the more profit they would make. There is also the chance of getting even more experience points and expertise. So, Luke tells Daso that he is not interested, but the merchant keeps persuading him. Suddenly, Luke notices a cape and realizes the pattern on it is similar to the one he saw on that broken compass. So he realizes that it is one of the Shadow King's possessions. But then, Luke doubts whether the Shadow King's cape would be in a shabby place like this. Daso notices Luke looking at the cape and says that he has a good eye. Daso also tries to convince Luke by saying that it is a product with an excellent cost-performance ratio and asks him if he would buy it. Luke has enough money, but he doesn't want to give it to someone like Daso who just puts anything out there for sale. He then wonders if he should just drag him to a secluded place and tear him apart, while the merchant wonders how he could cater to Luke's taste. Just then, another guy shows up and picks up an object, asking how much it is. Daso says it would cost him 10 silver. He hands him a money bag with 10 silver. Money pouches are used for trading that was divided into units of 10. As Daso is bidding the guy goodbye, Luke goes through his inventory and steals 10 of Daso's silver pouches. He then asks Daso how much the cape is. Daso says that since it is a normal grade item but very protective, he would just take 60 silver for it. Luke pauses to think and says the price is a little high, so Daso asks him to just give 50 silver. Luke says that is still expensive, while Daso says that he's giving it away like a beggar for 50 silver. He then hands over the silver pouch he stole and the merchant thanks him for the purchase. Luke then asks if he could look around at the other items. Daso asks him to feel free to look around as much as he wants to. A while later, Luke is glad that he was able to get the cape without spending any of his actual money. He then decides to test out its abilities. The game informs him that he can absorb the energy from the cloak and feel Shadow King's powers within the cloak. He also acquires a new skill because of this. The skill is called Parker. It would allow him to freely utilize all-terrain features until the limit of his stamina is reached. Soon, Luke absorbs the energy from the cape and the cape disappears. Now that he has absorbed the energy, Luke decides to try out the Parker skill. He wonders how to test it out when he sees that a few bricks in the wall next to him are colored differently. He assumes that the game is telling him to touch it. He does so and the system assist is turned on. Soon, a hologram of Luke appears beside him, freaking him out. The hologram climbs up the wall, using the colored bricks as holds. Luke realizes he is supposed to follow its moves. He attempts to climb the wall too and manages to do so easily. He then sees the hologram turn around and leap from wall to wall. Luke thinks this is insane. This could be a one-way ticket to disaster, but he decides to give it a try anyway. He jumps from where he is to the wall on the opposite side and manages to grab onto the ledge and feels satisfied. It seems that the stamina consumption is not too high, and if one has enough stamina, they could use it infinitely. From the top of the roof, he takes in the breathtaking view. He then wonders where he could find a place to steal and level up. Based on his current location, clearing the residential area seems to be a good idea to him. But there are too many eyes there, so it wouldn't be convenient. So he decides to do it at the Baroness mansion, but then there would be too many guards there. He then wonders if he should rob the slums. Luke then sees a man who seems like an ordinary slum NPC, but he seems to be walking away with something. Luke wonders what good stuff he has with him. So that is it for this video. Guys, hope you enjoyed it. So if you liked the video, then hit that like button and leave a comment for the next part. Most important, subscribe and press the bell icon for notification. I will meet you in the new video. Till then, bye.